Welcome back to the California Probation Connection. My name is Karen Pank, and I'm the Executive Director of the Chief Probation Officers of California. And I'm here today with Chief Steve Jackson, our current president and Chief of San Joaquin County. Thank you for joining us, Chief.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So we want to jump right into it. We've got a lot of stuff to cover. You've had a busy year, and you're still standing. I mean, technically we're sitting
Just
right
barely.
now. But yes, well, no, it was good. It was good. You're supposed to talk about how wonderful it was this year. But let's start there with you being president of CPOC, and also having to run a county at the same time. So, no easy task. From a statewide perspective, what are some moments or milestones as you look back on the year that you kind of like, wow, yeah, that happened?
Yeah, it seems like it started really early, fast and heavy, almost maybe before my presidency. Had an opportunity to hop in some discussions and debates around Prop 36.
That's right.
But it has been a really, it's been the quickest year of my professional life and also the longest, I would say. We started with Prop 36, which took us everywhere, ups and downs, and kind of led into the jury trial, the jury duty bill,
right,
and some opportunities to get a win there, and really learning perspective on that as later on, as
right,
that thing was completely gut. And
And
then turn our focus to the diversion bill that ultimately we were able to kill with our fabulous partners that we established over this year. And so, those are a few that stand out. I mean, I think there was, statewide, some definite hits that we took, a couple of victories, small victories, I'll say. And
Yeah, no, it was a busy year. Actually, now that you're just talking about it, I'm also realizing why it probably seems like it was went by fast, but also was the longest year. So that is true. I was thinking about the conversation we were going to have today, and I always remember every chief who becomes president kind of has a theme of their year, things that they wanted to accomplish or focus on. Sometimes it's what you want, sometimes it's what the circumstances dictate. And I'm curious if you had an idea that you wanted to accomplish coming into the year. Did that change throughout the year? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I tried to remain open, but definitely had a theme that we talked about because of what our profession has really undertaken. And I mean, you could say that a last decade or more of really focusing on us as chiefs and wellness and functioning internally. We always seem to focus on our own folks, but one of my big goals was to figure out a program for us to really focus on each other and have some wellness. But I think that was quickly turned upside down. As it's not uncommon or hasn't been uncommon, but as we've gone through the last decade or more, I mean, it seems our profession is continually coming under deconstruction efforts, and I think really that dictated the year for me. A lot of defense with a little bit of offense, as we like to say, and that's been a battle for us. How much are we going to sit back and, take the punches before we start punching? But I think I had that was like my main goal was to focus on us, the people. But I think you have to be flexible whenever you're in that position. And, obviously things change really quick. And I think that was good for me too, though, getting off of, maybe what I was focusing on, and probably what helped me grow professionally the most was being put through so many different, moments throughout the year, not only, in the department, but statewide, and just being able to focus not only on yourself, but you really have to take all of your colleagues to the table when you are fighting that fight. So.
Well, that's a great segue to, I think, the chiefs are always so good at defending or uplifting all of the things that are happening in your county. You're the expert on San Joaquin, for example. But when you step into a role of leadership at CPOC, you also have to be thinking about what's important to your colleagues. What are some of the other things going around the state? And some of the blessing as well as the curse of the state of California is that we can be very, very diverse in our needs and desires. So, what do you think was maybe some of those challenges that you saw as the chief in trying to represent what your colleagues wanted? How did you try to find ways to kind of stay with that one voice and representing all?
Well, I mean, I can't take all the credit. Obviously, with your leadership and the communications team at CPOC, and just really trying to make sure that your voice and your message makes all attempts to say what the others would say and kind of come across in your demeanor and the way that you move and your focus on that diverse nature. I mean, you have to really represent, for example, when you're talking about Prop 36 or anything that has a financial income or impact, you have to think that those very northern counties and southern counties and the finances and the resources that they may have. So whenever you speak, whenever you talk to people off the cuff, you really have to have really a measured voice so that you're not getting it pigeonholed into what your circumstance is. And, there's always one challenge when you're the president and you're leading a large organization because, typically we may have tight votes or split votes, or some people may agree or disagree with the direction. But when you go speak in front of either the legislature or you have a meeting or even an interview like this, you got to make sure that your voice is one with your colleagues and that you're representing them just how they would want you to. So, and that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah, probably one of the reasons why you're thinking about wellness for the Chiefs at the beginning of the year was it was a good thing to be thinking about. But I can say you definitely were thrust into a lot of those situations where you were speaking on behalf of your colleagues, maybe a lot more than sometimes other presidents have had to do. Whether it's been in front of the legislature, you had quite a few times where you were doing that, or at a press conference or something like that. So, I mean, you did that really well with confidence, and I think, the Chiefs as a whole really appreciated having their voice heard, which, as we have heard in the past, can sometimes be missing in the debate.
Yeah, and I think that's probably one of our wins.
Yeah.
This year was having our voice heard so much, and I think, to your credit and the organization, our alliance with the District Attorneys Association and the police chiefs and the Sheriff's Association on, many of those times we were like 5 or 6 voices instead of one voices. And, I think that's going to help us going forward. I think we were able to really lay the groundwork with some of those collaborations. And so it won't feel so ominous when we go to the mic by ourselves, that we have some valued and trusted partners that are probably going to be more beneficial in years to come. But it does feel good to lay that groundwork and really springboard that forward.
Well, I mean, for what it's worth, and I'm just one person, but I think that was a big part of your major theme when I think back about it, is that you really reached out to make sure that we were talking to all of our partners, not just the partners that you mentioned, but a lot of them, and not feel like we have to go it alone all the time, that we should be, finding ways to collaborate at the statewide level, much like you do at the local level. So.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that's built on relationships.
Yep.
And so.
And feelings and emotions.
Yeah, that's what I enjoy,
Yes,
that.
yes.
But I think anytime, you can use your relationships and strengthen those to better everyone's push at the mic or their voice or their stance, the better for all of us.
Yeah.
And so that did feel good that, it wasn't just us speaking alone. And
Right.
Felt like getting punched in the face. We actually did some punching back.
Yeah, that's very true. And you were always willing to do that, right? I mean, you were always willing to jump in at a moment's notice to participate in those kinds. And that's super helpful, for those of us who are working for the association to be able to have a president who's all in. So, we really appreciate that. And you're right, we had some challenges, this year, and with many, challenges also come opportunities. So, the Prop 36 is a good example. That was not something we probably started last year thinking we were going to have such a pivotal role in, and that changed through the year, So do you see any potential opportunity from some of that challenge that we were faced this coming year? Or you can be supportive of Chief Human Kraus from the stands there and...
The first thing that comes to my mind is... the revisions around Title 15 and 24.
That's a great point.
Because you never know, how those are going to impact counties financially, resource-wise, and staffing. So I think for me, and I have full confidence in Chief Emmon Kraus and her ability to lead and see that. Obviously, her expertise on the executive steering committee. Mm-hmm. But I think just someone... being encouraging that you can do it. It is going to cause you to grow professionally, but
right.
I think when you use the example of Prop 36, and we had hopes of being funded, but one of the things I wanted to make clear is just how proud I am of my colleagues, because even though we tend to take on a lot of reformative measures, we do that also a lot without funding or maybe the appropriate level to make everybody whole. And I think it's just exciting to see how we respond as probation departments in California. No matter the circumstances, the chiefs stand up for their counties and make things happen. So I think just, being encouragement to her as she moves forward. And who knows, like us, that could be a fleeting moment,
mm-hmm.
Title 15 and 24, and the unknown could pop its rear head in March or May and pivot just like we did.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And while I expect most of our viewers to know what Title 15 and 24 is, in case there are a few people who are either kind of new to probation or only working on the adult side and haven't kind of seen the juvenile side yet, you want to give a little bit of what that is?
Yeah, just for those who may not understand, obviously our Title 15 regulations are I like to call it our Bible, our ground rules. Our playbook on how we house and provide services to youth in detention. And the flip side of that, the Title 24, is the actual physical structure and how that works and operates in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And so those typically are reviewed and updated every few years, but I think this year is significant.
Yeah.
We haven't had an update since juvenile realignment. So
lots of changes.
Really looking forward to. We've had a lot of changes over the last 5 years since the most recent update. So it's a very significant time, I think.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's not a groundbreaking moment in how we operate. So I definitely think Chief Emmon Kraus is ready for that. And
yeah, I think we'll have to be, because I don't know that was that train stopping, right?
No.
We need the Bible to be updated, to reflect some of those changes. So it will be interesting and important that our voice is reflected in those changes in a way to ensure we can be a success, right? I mean, that's at the core what I know your department works really hard at, your people work really hard at, the chiefs constantly spend a lot of time with making sure whatever comes our way that we can turn those lemons into lemonade if that's what's needed, right?
Yeah, and I think that's, probably what people need to understand is, just the work and the heart and what goes into what we do in our departments and the institutions that, we do care and
Yes.
You know, we are advocates for kids and their care and the services we provide. And so I think, you know, that's what we show year in and year out, no matter what we're presented with, you know, locally or on a statewide. It's good to know that we have a state of chiefs that are really going to show out at any measure and do what's right for kids. And I think people need to understand that clearly, that we do have the best interests of our youth in detention in mind when we do these things.
Yeah, you know, I think that's probably a side that sometimes people don't always see. And I'll even admit a side that I don't get to see often because of the work that I do with you. It might be kind of those kind of spontaneous moments. And I'm thinking of, we just got back from a statewide conference. It was fabulous. It was so great to see everybody kind of come together. But you emceed a panel of youth who had been system involved and had come from all over the state. And to see you connect with that, like I get to see you connect all the time with legislators or, you know, press or people here in Sacramento, but to see you kind of in your work, I can see why you are the chief and why you were in probation. You easily connected with those kids and you know, even before they came. I'm curious, how did you talk one of them into running with you on the fun run before the conference?
So I had no idea that Miguel was going to join us until he was out there.
That's great.
And so it was really good to get some small talk in with him before the training. And obviously he was very well spoken. I mean, he didn't need any help from me. But maybe just for him or both of us to break the ice. And I think the other three, Kamarion and Lily and David, really their personalities brought out what I needed to do for them.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, you see that, and I think you could have put, honestly, all of us up there, each one of us, and we would have gotten into that role. And for me, you know, like I told them, I don't see those kids any different than my own 20-somethings. Right. And so I think that's what people need to understand, that, you know, we don't look at these kids any different. We don't speak to them any different than how we would treat our own. And I think that's how we run our departments and our institutions. Yeah. So when we have that connection, it's like me on bar stools with my kids or the kids that we have in San Joaquin. And, you know, fortunate for me, they played along with it. But I think, you know, more so, it's just a great example of the work that we do. Right. You know, we got those youth from, you know, 4 different regions in our state. And if those are the example that the public or the people watching could see, then to me that would translate, okay, well, they must be doing something right in that county. And so I look at it as those kids were really beaming examples of the work that we do every day.
It's true.
And so I think people need to understand that. And I like the question that was asked at the end about their impact on the audience. Because I don't think those kids understand how invested we are and how much we do care. They don't look at us the same, but if we can do more like that, maybe it changes the flavor of, you know, how we see each other.
Yeah, I mean, I saw Miguel come up to you after, later on in the afternoon, you know, in the hallway and stuff, and was, you know, comfortable to come talk to you. And just, you know, it was really special to see that connection. And you're right, people don't see that connection. Maybe even the youth sometimes don't see that side. And as chiefs, you probably don't get to day, you know, kind of have the interaction, which is probably what brought you to probation in the first place.
Yeah, and you know, because they're youth in detention, we don't get a lot of, well, we can't really put media out there with them and their relationship that we see every day. So I think it's important as we move forward too, going backwards, that we continue to tell our story individually and statewide and really demonstrate to the public and those making decisions out there about what exactly we do. Right. How that impacts kids. You know, 20 years ago, we wouldn't have had kids attending college on furlough or working or trying out for our college basketball team. Right. You and that's where we're at now. And, it's incumbent upon us too to pivot and look at detention differently. And,
yeah, it's a different day. We
It is a
definitely
different
have a
day.
lot of challenges in front of us for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that kind of takes me to the question that I would say at the beginning of your year also was kind of on the tip of everybody's tongue, and I'm sure it's still there, but the staffing needs, the retention and the recruitment, because of course we can't do the mission without the people. And so how is that going? Either just, speak for your county, speak for what you're maybe seeing statewide. Does that continue to be a top priority for chiefs?
yeah, I think it is statewide. It should be
Yeah.
a top priority. Locally we're doing really well, and I don't know if that's just, luck, or maybe we just came into a time where, available people or our reach. As you know, we are pretty aggressive on our campaigning and social media. We invite a lot of people in, the public, to tour our facilities and join, celebrations that we have. But, you really have to find a balance when you, try to take it a broad scope and go smaller. If you just come down to it, our profession, law enforcement in general, probation, corrections, hasn't really been shown in a positive light,
Yeah.
in the last half decade or so. And so you're really battling at times, outside distractions and trying to attract, candidates to your department, and really focusing on why maybe you're different than, a police agency or a sheriff's department or even the DA's office. So you really have to be creative. But I think the other thing too is if you look at institutions, and our staff understand that every year there's something they have to deal with.
Something new. Yeah.
Something new, it evolves. There's always uncertainty. And so, keeping someone focused on what their personal goals and their mission are, along with the department, to keep them there, is difficult. And even, in the field side, things aren't getting any easier. There still is a lot of distrust from the public. So you really have to, paint a picture for these folks and why they should join your agency specifically. But and then once you get them, you got to keep them happy. And so we know, I can tell you, a large portion of our employees, our staff, are young. They're my children's age, and maybe a little younger. So
Yeah.
you really have to empower them to move and be flexible and do things different. You can't have management practices that are 30 years old with are 22, 23, 24, or 5 years old.
Sure.
They want a voice, they want to say, they want to be involved. And so as leaders, you just have to evolve with them and give them opportunities and a voice, because, these young employees will leave. They'll hop around. So you really have to find a way to make them feel comfortable to get them to stay. But I think that will continue to be an issue in the next few years, statewide. We're all in kind of different places with our staffing, but as things change, as things evolve, that's going to continue to be a priority. I think our stance to have the probation profession like a university study would probably be good.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Keep moving that way so that there's a curriculum of study
Yeah.
in our colleges so people become more informed, and we don't get folks that don't want to move forward with a sheriff's department or a police agency and then fall back. We want to be that selection up front, and I think the education piece is a good way to do it.
Right. Try to really attract people at the time where they're thinking about their future and where they want to see themselves versus kind of, like you say, I was kind of commenting on another conversation. It seems like almost every time you ask somebody who's in probation, especially chiefs or those who've been in the career for a while, like, how'd you get into probation? It almost always is, kind of fell into it. It wasn't that, I went to school to become a probation officer. So what about yourself? How did you get into probation?
That's a great question. So I think for me early on, my parents grew up with a probation officer in Stanislaus County, one of their best friends.
Oh, okay.
In their wedding. So as I was young, this man and his wife were always around me and my family, and so I always enjoyed his stories and the things that he would say.
Mm-hmm.
As I got older, I did have some friends that came in and out of the system, so that was very interesting.
Yeah.
And it's kind of ironic, when I began my career in Stanislaus County, this person was still there for a couple of years, so it was kind of a full circle.
Oh, wow.
And I think for many of us too, we go through certain things, in childhood that shape and form us and really put us in that mindset to want to be that person that helps and moves people through.
Right.
Many of us have had family members that have been in and out of the system and that have kind of shaped and molded our mindset. And so I think for me, it's, how we move through our life, the people we're impacted by and who mentors us. And then, for me, I was a social work major in college.
There's a lot of feelings in that,
so,
Chief. I don't know if you.
I don't know if that translated well until now. But yeah, there's a lot of cultural awareness and working with people. My internship was as a social worker, so I think that all just kind of combines into.
It seems like it was a natural.
Yeah, it molds and.
Yeah.
We tend to take on a lot of athletes too because of the team camaraderie, structured nature of what we do. So
that's a great point. It is a very team-oriented, profession. You can't do any one of changing someone's trajectory or their behavior is not a one-person band kind of scenario. So,
and I think that's why we're so good at reentry is that we don't try to do it alone.
Right.
And that's probably, now that I go backwards for Chief Eamon Krause, just laying out there that we are the reentry experts and we don't do it alone. I think if people really dove into our departments and looked at the number of hands that are involved with our youth and adults who reenter from custody, they would be amazed about the reach and the touch points that we've set up for our folks.
Yeah, no, we are the connector, as we often say, so that does make a lot of sense. Well, I love the story because on two fronts. One, you didn't just kind of fall into probation, but two, you really found it through mentorship and somebody who could kind of lay that out for you. So it really kind of goes to the point that not just the current chiefs, but those who maybe are listening to the podcast who are in the profession, that's also something that hopefully they kind of keep in mind. They could be influencing or impacting future people who come to the profession.
Yeah, and I think I said even as recently as at this conference when someone asked about our recruitment efforts and where we're at, and I just told them your current employees are the best voice and advertisement that you're going to have. And so I think as
true.
leaders, if you invest in people and you give them the tools and the resources to do their job well, they're not going to keep their mouth shut.
Mm-hmm.
And so they can really be your torpedo out there.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I think you get caught up on, let's have the flashy billboards or let's do these social media posts or go to colleges. But I think when you invest and you dive into your own people, they're going to end up speaking louder than you can ever.
Yeah. That's a great point. Yeah, and maybe one of the reasons why it seems like you guys are doing really well and in kind of restaffing, the department. And as you say, like there is a lot of new people coming into the profession right now, so you do have a younger workforce. There's also a lot of new chiefs that came on board during your tenure. I mean, I'm not going to say that you may be scared off chiefs into retirement. I don't think there's any correlation to that, so don't let anybody tell you that. Yeah. But I do think you've had the opportunity to onboard a lot of people.
Yeah, and that's been a challenge too, because I was appointed in March of 2020, which was during a pandemic, and if I look back to my predecessor, Chief James, who probably went through the majority of her 8-year tenure as chief with a solid group of chiefs, and how much that table has changed since 2020, but it's been really eye-opening because I still consider myself new.
I don't think you get to claim that.
I don't get to claim that on paper.
Yes.
But there's times that there's rooms, obviously this year, that I still walked into that there was an intimidation factor, or I didn't know the right things to say, or the right people to introduce. But I think for me, what I tell newer chiefs is, and I can say that, but it may look differently with me, with my tenure at the front of the table. But, I had 2 or 3 years to listen and learn from chiefs that had, decades of tenure.
True.
Some in their chief assignment. And so I think it's important for new chiefs as they, join the table and the group, to get their message across, but also to have a listening ear and to watch some of those that have been doing it for a long time. It can really make you feel at ease when you hear some of the same things happening statewide. I can remember walking into my very first quarterly, I think when we opened up in July of 2021.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I had already been thrust into a leadership role in the SAC region, and I had absolutely no clue what I was doing. But as the day and the week went on, and tenured chiefs started to talk about the same things that I was feeling or seeing or that was happening, it was like you started telling yourself, okay, it's going to be okay. You can do this. And then sometimes you have to understand that not everything said, during those meetings is going to impact you, and that's okay.
It's true.
You don't need any fear of missing out if you're missing some issues. So I do feel for the new folks coming in because it seems like it has been a revolving door.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that it's not, our system.
Right. Yeah, it's been challenging times for the system.
It is very difficult. It's not easy to lead, with that constant evolution and change in our system. And so I think that's why it was important for me early on, seeing that continual change, to have some sort of support system and in place as the room changes every quarter. And it does.
I think it does. I think you have done it. Probably. I feel like there's a lot more camaraderie at the end of this year than there was maybe at the beginning of the year. But with chiefs, even new chiefs coming on board, you're seeing new chiefs participate in some of the activities like right out of the gate, and I think that is because you have, kind of built a really welcoming and mentoring place for them. So as much as we've already joked here, that touches feelings, and that's
excellent
that's not your
feedback.
Thing. Yeah.
I think it's just a facade, Karen.
Yes,
you know that.
I
But
know.
I mean, I do care, and I tell my own people when we meet that I genuinely care. I love my department, what the staff do for us, and I know the rest of us would say those same things. And we invest so much in them. That sometimes when we get to those spots, the quarterlies, that we do need to have some fun times together and
Right.
joke and tease. And I thought last week's conference was an excellent time to do that.
Yeah. It was great.
I'm still looking for the lyrics to Chief Ford's rap.
Yes.
And you don't get to see our colleagues in that light sometimes, and so I think that helps too. When you have staff, and my staff were there too, and maybe they hadn't seen me interact with kids like that before.
That's true. Yeah.
So they
that's a good
start to
point.
humanize your position a little bit,
Yeah.
and when you get to hang out and associate and maybe talk to them a little bit differently.
Yeah. Learn from others. Whether the
The
counties are
badge
doing-
doesn't scare them as
Yes,
much, or the
yeah.
nameplate on the door. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's a good opportunity.
Yeah, no, that's great. And for those of you who maybe aren't sure what Chief Jackson is talking about, we had this really great session where Chief Ford from Alameda and Chief Tulloch from San Francisco Adult put on a really fabulous training session, which may have included a rap and some dancing, but we're going to have to leave that there, and maybe we'll find a way to get it on the road here soon. But it was a really good way to kind of just really look at the work and figure out ways to support each other. So I think that's something that you've done really, really well in your tenure. And speaking of that, that's really trying to find a way to lead statewide, a way to lead among your peers, but also you're a leader in your department. Can you share with us anything that's different between the two? Like how is it different? It's different leadership needed.
Yeah,
perhaps.
for me, it never goes beyond the relationships that you make. So I think,
So that's probably similar.
yeah,
Those two-
that's a similar, in my own county, a lot of what we do and why we're successful is because of relationships. I'm the chief that walks around with a coffee cup inside juvenile hall and in the field. And,
Yeah.
I really try to make an effort to get to know people personally.
Great.
Because I think our staff are in tune to, if you were going to be superficial, or they could tell.
Right.
So I really wanted to make it a point to, meet them where they're at and reach out in times of need, and just be supportive. And I think that translates into, my peers in San Joaquin County and the Board of Supervisors, who I, am really. Just have the honor and privilege to have a really close relationship with my Board of Supervisors and the judges. I couldn't say enough about that. And so I think with my tenure as, the president, is you just want to extend that on a greater scale.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I made it a point to reach out to other chiefs in their time of need and really be personable. And when you have those breaks or discussions during our business meetings, that, it's not just about business, it's about,
Right.
how they're doing. And our discussions monthly on our Chiefs Roundtable, just ensuring that they have the things that they need to be successful and understand that,
Yeah.
we all went through some of those things. So I think you just need to, show value in folks and, be clear and honest and be human. And so I think you take what you do in your own department and you just stretch that. I won't do the cotton ball for chief, but you just stretch that out,
Right.
to your peers across the state. And I think we all do a good job of that. We tend to gravitate to those who may need a little extra assistance, and, we can kind of convoy people to certain areas to help out.
That's true. Yeah, chiefs are fabulous about that. And I'm sure that's present in other professions at the leadership level. But I've always been amazed at, if somebody is experiencing a particular challenge, like you said, more likely than not, somebody else has also experienced it and wants to help, the person know like what's at the end of the tunnel, and, maybe a couple of chiefs, being able to give a couple of different perspectives. And chiefs are very giving of their time. And I know you don't have a lot of it, so that makes it even more
And I
valuable.
know too, just to put out there, even when we went through our own critical incident this summer,
Yeah.
and not, many of us don't have extreme experience maybe we've been through our own incidents, but not having to deal with others, and really how you bring an entire department together and focus on them and heal and, get services in place. So I just appreciated all those that, supported our department and our officers. And so I think we do an excellent job of wrapping our arms around each other when we are going through things. And I think for me, that was one defining moment where you could see that. You're on the receiving end instead of,
That's
giving
very
that to
true.
others. So,
You were really, as president, you kind of get to be the point person where somebody has a question, they're coming to you. So you were really helping others, but that's true. We were, maybe if you don't mind talking a little bit about what happened, just because I'm not sure everybody might be familiar with it, but we were sitting at a CPOC quarterly, and some pretty shocking news broke that came out of your county.
yeah, so that's the other thing you're not prepared for either is, our staff, they're so good. They know that we're busy, but, they have to find a way to get critical information to us. So I just remember sitting there with you, and my phone started to go off, getting text if I had seen videos and if I knew what was happening. And obviously, you don't know what's going on.
We do keep you guys kind of isolated in
Yeah.
a bunker during the business meetings. That is true.
But yeah, for those who don't know, and I'm sure that video at some point went viral, but we had an adult client who was obviously dealing with some mental health issues and was really struggling. Attempted to enter one of our large buildings, a 4-story building downtown, with a gas can and a lighter, and attempted to light the building on fire. Thankfully, we had a lot of staff respond to the emergency and got him out of the building. But I think what's unique about our profession is they understand the risk to public safety and what their role is. And so we had several staff, follow and try to talk to this individual and coerce him into giving up. But that just wasn't his plan that day. And this person, ultimately got under a freeway overpass that's also doubles as a parking garage, and had lit 2 cars on fire already before we were able to engage. But ultimately, this person was set on, either taking his own life or others before our officers intervened. And I'm so grateful that they did.
Absolutely. Could
I
have been
think
so much worse.
not only for, the client's own life, but for their family. But I think it shows the will and the heart of our own staff to put themselves in danger to save lives, even when they're injured, and, unfortunately, outside of the mental trauma and seeing the critical incident, but, our officer was heavily burned and, spent about a month in the hospital at UC Davis. Thankfully, he is recovering. But I think, when you have incidents like that throughout the state, and then, that shows one side of what we do, the public safety, the supervision, the depths that they'll go to protect the public. And then if you want to use me as an example, at the conference, the way that we talk to kids.
Right, yeah.
And, that's how we interact with everyone.
Yeah. You're a very dynamic profession.
You
You
know,
can't
so-
really be just one way.
For those who, know of that critical incident and then they watch or they attended that conference, you're seeing a full perspective of the probation profession.
True.
In just a few months. And so, we don't like to put those types of things on display. We understand that they may happen. And
you have to be prepared for it.
and all of us train for critical incidents. We typically want to highlight all the positives and the good
Right.
things that we do, but I think whenever our officers and departments go through things like that, and it could be other natural disasters and
Yeah.
wildfires and earthquakes that many of our departments have dealt with, and I think it really shows the depth of our profession and the bounds that we go to not only provide service and to help people get better and move on, but the measures we take to public safety, just like other law enforcement agencies.
Well, it's one of the things, I mean, that I love most about getting to be a part of the work that you all do, and it is very multifaceted, which, you know, has its challenges, but I always think of it as it isn't just a job. You've just said it several times, what your profession does. It is a profession, it is a calling, and people really have to not just learn one thing, but learn how to react in many different settings and many different situations. And so, I may be biased, but I think, our folks who work in this profession just are obviously at the top of the top of people.
Yeah, you really have to, and I've put this out several times, but, you really have to be a teacher, a mentor, a parent,
Yeah.
a social worker, so many different hats. And, I didn't coin the phrase, but a Swiss Army knife per se of
Right.
talents. And so it does really speak to who we have and our employees and what they can do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, that's a really good commercial for getting people recruited into the profession. Well, sticking with San Joaquin for a minute, I mean, as you said, and I always appreciate chiefs, and you do this really well, Chief Jackson. Yeah, sometimes we have to talk about the challenges. Sometimes there is some negativity, but let's go ahead and channel some positivity and talk to me a little bit about the things that you have a lot of pride in of what you're doing in San Joaquin these days.
Well, I take a lot of pride in what we're doing with our kids in the institution.
Yeah.
Just the growth that not only our profession but our staff have had to take with realignment.
Yeah.
It's really challenged us to think alternative means of caring for kids, but just to see our youth, in culinary and learn a skill like truck driving or forklift
Right.
or coding or logistics. We have youth that attend college. That's just amazing. And we've had kids that have left our institution and are attending, Sac State. But
Ironically, but for their time with probation, maybe not have those opportunities.
yeah, and I think, the system changes and it may have forced us to evolve a little bit, but
Sure.
I think some of that can be a good evolution. We like to show off our culinary program and our kids all the time, and they love it when we come eat with them and we bring people in and the judges. But I'm just proud of our staff and the way that they work with our kids in detention. That is not an easy gig.
No.
I often refer it to as Las Vegas. The lights are always on and the doors are always open. It's always moving and shaking. And, and on the flip side, our staff that are out in the field and probation has changed for them over the last, 10 or 15 years with adult realignment.
Yeah.
And just the challenges of, changing that cycle.
Right.
Rehabilitating and taking on so many different populations from, diversion to pretrial, PRCS, realignment folks. So
It's the entire spectrum, really. Other
Yeah.
than detention on the adult side, or prosecution, it's really the entire spectrum.
And whether you, back then in 2011, you were a fan or not, and, I've been pretty forward about, I do like juvenile realignment and what it's brought. Maybe not the time warp speed that we had to get implemented, but
Fair.
I think our our casework staff have gone through the same thing. And, really even before that, with Senate Bill 678, really getting us to a point where you're not just supervising in the field, but, you're teaching classes, you're providing treatment, you're getting CBOs on board to assist with that, and allowing us to do, a multitude of things. I mean,
More than just compliance.
if it wasn't for that funding, many of us wouldn't have day reporting centers where we have,
Sure.
full functioning interventions happening. And
Yeah.
so I just think, it's not just me. You look at, and we saw it this week, people, have chicken coops and, goat farms. And I think, you look at everything, all the reform that we've had to undertake, but there is a positive side. And I think you saw that this last week and how we perform and what our kids are doing, no matter, where you're at with, either realignment. It's the boundaries that we have to play in. And so I think you can either take that and do good with it, because it's not going to go away and it's not going to change
Right.
at this point.
Right.
And I think that's what I'm most proud of from my colleagues. If you look around the programs and the services to make sure those kids are successful, it's just been great to see.
Yeah.
So I don't want to focus just on us, which a lot, I think if you asked any chief sitting here to focus on themselves, they
Right.
would, push it off on others. I think we're all doing a great job with what we have. And,
Yeah, I would agree.
some even have auto mechanic shops. And so
All sorts of
Just
unique and interesting.
really a lot of
Yeah.
forward thinking that's
Yeah.
happening.
I would say so. Out
you
of, nothing in a lot of ways.
Yep.
So, yeah. No, that's great. Well, you've used the word evolved several times as well, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think probation had always been good at adapting, but now we actually had to become really good at evolving too, because of all of the changes, many of which you just shared. So I often get asked, what's in the crystal ball, but can you look 5-10 years out? What do you think we will be, grappling with next? What do you think we should be prepared to be evolving towards?
Wow.
I
you're
know, right? I know.
You're going to stump me with something.
Well, yeah, we're getting close to the end of our time. I had to come up with something. I know. Is there any more room for change, or is it contraction? I think those are all, potentials on the board.
Yeah, what's really discouraging to me, and it's not a great way to think, but if you look at history, my history, and you try to project that forward, has the system been contracted to nothing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think each year, and I'm not sure if you can really look at that until maybe the early 2000s. Is that what the future is going to look like? Have we just evolved to a point where, we're extinct, or there's at some point you would think there's no more to take.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's what we talk about every year.
Right.
But our profession continues to step up and make do. But I think, for me and where I sit, it does seem like every year there's a concerted effort to take our profession away from us, the professionals. And so I think going forward, I think it's going to be important that we have people who come inside and look at what we do and not make decisions, on a hill far away.
Right.
Or those that are driven by money or other aspirations by folks. I think people need to understand before they put things out there what we're doing.
Yeah.
And well,
Look before you leap.
as well as I know that there's not an understanding of what we do. But they like to put on paper like they do understand what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would encourage our profession, our chiefs, going forward to make a concerted effort to bring their legislators, to bring others even the public,
Right.
business folks, board of supervisors, influencers in their county, bring them in and show them exactly what we're doing
Yeah.
and how well we do it. Because people aren't going to see, the work like that's being done last week.
Right.
We have to show that. We have to face forward and put that message out, and keep fighting, because I think there was a time, even this year, where it's like, man, this is getting close. I mean, I think some legislation, is geared that way.
Sure.
Thankfully not towards me, but, like we've said, you start one place and, that can certainly snowball. And, none of us want to see that happen, because I would imagine after it failed, they'd be looking for us to come back and,
I would agree.
and rescue.
Yes.
Um,
And that could be what happens, right? I mean, there could be. I could definitely see that. It's an interesting, conundrum. But one of the things that makes probation, I think, so wonderful is that they are a humble profession. You're a humble chief here. I've been trying to pull out of you to take some victory laps, and you haven't taken the bait. But that humble profession sometimes doesn't lead to getting the information out. So going back to some of the things that you said at the very beginning, your staff can be your best educators of the community. And so hopefully those who are listening, kind of take that mantle up and talk about the good work and not be afraid to let people see exactly what's happening and what we do, because it's a really good story to be told.
Yeah, and I think for so long people haven't listened to our story in a silo. So as I mentioned early on, I mean, with our partnerships and our collaborations moving forward, and you have 4 or 5 voices speaking the same language,
Right.
we could get some movement.
Mm-hmm.
And I see in short term, really honing in on that and parlaying what we started,
Yeah.
and moving forward together instead of,
In our own little silos,
yeah.
Well, let's lighten it up, because I've been very excited for the end of this podcast,
Uh-oh.
because I have for you, I know you're a big sports fan, as am I. So a lot of times these sports shows will have like lightning rounds. So you can only give like one word. I'll give a phrase. There may be a question in here that requires a sentence, but we'll go quick. I'm not going to put a timer on you, but I just want to hit some quick thoughts here. So if you had to sum up well, first of all, do you agree to the terms of the engagement?
Yes.
All right. If you had to sum up 2025 for California probation in one word or phrase, what would it be and why? So in 2025, where we are today, California probation.
Resilient.
I love it. I wouldn't have come up with that, but that's exactly that's good. I'm not supposed to be grading as we go. That's kind of takes away from the lightning concept, but I love it. Resilient, yes. Name something about probation work that you wish more people understood or appreciated.
The day-to-day.
Yeah.
They just don't see it.
Yeah. Makes sense. What keeps you personally motivated and inspired to lead in this field?
Watching our staff.
Yeah.
To be able to sit and watch them teach and work with clients is, why we do what we do. I just love watching them.
Yeah. What's one partnership, innovation, or success story from another county that you've heard about this year that you think deserves statewide recognition?
I know they do in a couple counties, and I've been to one. I've been to the mechanic shop in Fresno, but I love the mechanic shop in Orange County. Kudos to Chief Hernandez and obviously, Chief Sentman for that thought. That to me.
And that's in the facility, the juvenile facilities.
I've looked at space for that, woodworking and, I think there's just a need, mechanic and welding type profession. I think it's just another avenue for our kids to be successful and to have something beyond our care. Those two programs, nails.
Well, I'm going to definitely say something that I know is near and dear to your heart. How do you see technology shaping the future of probation?
Yes, it is near and dear. Artificial intelligence is here. No matter if you want to look at it or not, you can't turn away. I think there's certain things that AI can definitely benefit our profession. It certainly isn't going to do anything for the human nature and the body that we do. But there's things that AI can do to help us be more proficient in not being behind a desk or a computer terminal, and it can allow us to spend more time with people. I think we have the best opportunity to change behavior when we're focused one-on-one or in a classroom setting, in their environment, in their home, in our classrooms. And when you go back to looking at different departments, being at recruitment and retention, utilizing AI to that benefit so that folks can be more efficient and spend more time with people because we are in the human service industry, the better.
Yeah.
So I think that's, however the world looks at it in other industries, it's never going to take the human element out of our job. It's never going to stop us being who we are, but it's going to allow us to do who we are and be who we are more often than not.
It's very well said. What's one misconception the public has about probation?
The badge.
And you have to give more than one word on that
I
one.
think they translate that look and associate it with everything else badge. Mm-hmm. And, we've heard that so many times, and I think we're so much more than what that nameplate says, what the badge represents. I just think it's important for people to understand how multifaceted, we are. Gone are the days of, hooking and booking. I like that term. I think I might have used something similar with the kids last week. But that's a symbol of what we do. It gives us some authority and some power to do things, but it's not who we are.
That's a good way to put it.
We're much more as a profession in that role.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to put it. Well, I'll end with this lightning question. What was the best part about being CPOC president this year? And if you don't say me, I'll be hurt. But besides me.
The first thing I was going to say was sitting next to you every quarter. Just the opportunity. I've had a chance to think because we're all our own worst critics. So you always think, man, am I doing a good job? What do these people think? You're not a good leader. What are you doing? And unless you get feedback from them. But I think just the opportunity to lead such a fantastic group, I look at it like it's been easy and hard. Mm-hmm. And the reason I say easy is because they're all so intelligent and articulate and good at what they do. So it makes it easy to lead a team of that nature. But it's also very difficult because they are good at what they do and they are smart. And so it really causes you really have to grow, professionally and even personally. You got to put yourself in places that you weren't comfortable before. So I just appreciate them for allowing me to lead them. Mm-hmm. My question to them is, I hope that I've made them proud in doing this work alongside with you, and so. That's where I
think
stand.
They would say that you have, but I'll let them shower you with all of those great pieces of information at our last meeting coming up in December. But no, it's been a real pleasure to sit next to you, each of the quarterlies and all the different events that have been in between. And I'm glad that it sounds like you'd say it was a positive experience for you, because I think it was a positive experience for the state to have you as our leader.
I've really enjoyed it, and obviously under your leadership and your team, and just fantastic. I mean, getting us ready for things that we need to do, and what a great opportunity. I mean, something that I never saw myself doing, or if I looked in the crystal ball, that wasn't there. So just really appreciate that.
Yeah, well, great. Well, that seems like a great place to end, although we probably could talk another 2 hours, but I really want to thank you for coming here to have this conversation. It was really fun to prepare for, and it was very fun to have. And so I always enjoy talking to you, Chief Jackson. And with that, thank you for joining us for today's podcast with Chief Jackson. Look forward to seeing you again.